All right. What's going on, everybody out there? It's Ron Brown, LMT, the People's Fitness Professional, alongside my brother, Wise the Dome TV. Uh, um, if I'm bugging out right now, it's Raheem, right?
Yeah,
Raheem,
Rakim Shabazz. Rakim
Raheem,
Shabazz. Yes, sir.
Raheem Shabazz, Raheem Shabazz. Why do I think Raheem? Because my cousin
Because
is
there is a Raheem Shabazz too,
and my cousin name is Raheem.
no
So
doubt.
Raheem is in the building. We're talking about the Black Indigenous claim, examine truth, lies, and evidence. I had to bring the brother on because he's not that with pretending shit. So first off, I want to let people know who you are. I want you to give, introduction to who you are, and what you're about, and
Yeah,
your travels. I don't know if you, of course, you watched this show before, but we always take people through the history first, and then we go into the bill.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, I'm the host of Waz the Dome TV. It's a podcast dedicated to the Black experience, whether it's art, culture, politics, history. We strive to cover it all. I'm also one of the hosts on the Rise Up International Morning Show on Black Power Media. You can check us out there. I am also one of the hosts with Dr. Gilmore on Algorithms of Empire on the University of Toronto's Center of Ethics YouTube
Mm.
channel. That we discuss philosophy, technology, and counterinsurgency, and how that affects us domestically and the global South. And so, man, I've been always someone who has been into the books and into our history, into our culture, into our politics. Growing up, being inspired by like the people that I saw on TV, such as Dr. Khalid Muhammad and uh, you know Farrakhan, Sister Soldier. We saw like when they used to be on Donahue, Daruba Ben
Oh
Wahad.
yeah. Oh
Uh,
man, you're bringing it back,
yeah,
bro.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's the era right there.
right. So I was that kind of that changed my life. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
so high school, I began to read Garvey and Du Bois and Elijah, and I just never stopped. And even whenever I kind of uh I guess went through a period where I somewhat lost myself, that was always still my foundation. That's how I was able to get back on track or whatever. And so, I created Wild the Dome TV because I have these conversations offline all the time anyway. So I was like, yo, it'd probably be dope to just record these conversations, and the people responded, the people seemed to appreciate it. And so yeah, that's what I do. Also, I would like to just say shout out to a couple of the a few of the brothers that I research things with. That's my brother Malik, Carlos, uh, Olu, Hero. Those are my brothers, Ngozi. And everybody who's doing the real work. Shout out to you, Brother Ron, for your channel and the invite. You are traveling at terrific speeds. The growth on this channel is crazy. And so obviously you're doing something right.
Thank
And
you.
again, I appreciate the invite.
Thank you. Thank you. So now you grew up where?
All right, yeah. I grew up in half and half, Durham, North Carolina, and Grand Prairie, Texas. And so I spent half of my life in Durham, half of my life in Texas. In Texas is where I learned a lot of the ins and outs of boots on the ground work with brothers like Baba Amin and Lone Star RBG and all those brothers. Also, the Gods and Earths in Sudan, which is or Divine Allah, my educator, I got be Allah, and just the whole cipher there. And so, yeah, half in Durham, half in Grand Prairie.
All right. All right. So brother,
I'm a Southern cat.
got you. Got you. Peace, double the pleasure, double the fun. Peace,
Peace be to
peace, peace,
God.
peace, peace to the God. So now you said boots on the ground. So basically you were out there, I want to call it maybe community activism. Want to call
Well,
it that?
yeah, just I was never the organizer. I was adding on to those who were
What's that?
organized. So whatever they needed, I would add on. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be coat drives, school drives, lectures. You know what I'm
That's what I'm talking about, bro.
saying?
Like this is. I don't know if you ever saw pictures of me out there. Okay, giving out food and all of that.
hmm
This is what I want to do. I'm just letting everybody know what this platform is. If this thing, if when this thing grows to where it needs to be, we're doing bouncy houses, all of that, all of
Mm.
the basics, the basics of reaching out to the community like they've been doing over the years. You can still do that. It's basic stuff. Passing out food, talking to young people on the corner, whatever, like the all the basic stuff. Oh yeah, food drives. What else? Clothing drives, back to school.
hmm
Even though none of us really celebrate, or I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm sure you don't.
Right.
But at the same time, we can give out toys at that time for the babies and stuff like that. We need to get back to doing that, and that could pull in people who actually want to listen to what you have to say, and you can pull them into your temple, your mosque, or the Allah school, whatever it is, your idea. Anyway,
Absolutely.
I don't know, that gets me going. But anyway,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
anyway, so boots on the ground, you were doing your thing, and then you were taught by you said you're enlightener,
I got
right?
I got be a law. Yeah.
I got be
And
Allah.
yeah.
Okay, now the way you come across, right? It's like we're like, man, how can I explain this? A-likes.
Indeed.
We're definitely A-likes. It doesn't seem like it because I'm not like, black power, you know what I mean?
hmm
I like to, you know what I mean, kind of play the neutral and look at the scene or whatever. But where did you get that spirit from? That
Man.
Pan-Africanist spirit.
Mm. Well, I would. It's interesting because knowledge itself, I like to say, tells you who you are. Political education tells you what needs to be done. And
Mm.
so when it comes to Pan-Africanism, it was just a natural evolution in my own studies, right? A free Africa means a free diaspora, right? We are living in a time where Western imperialism is on full blast in front of everybody's face. The resources are being stolen right under the ground from in the global south, as we can see what's happening in Venezuela right now.
Mhm.
Uh, and so Pan Africanism and its many forms seeks to address these issues, right? We're not going to just say the black man is God our way into a different world, right? Like we have to have real political analysis, real political education, so we can understand what's happening better, and so we can fight what's happening better.
Okay. Indeed. Uh, 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 I don't know. Okay, real quick about that. I don't really like to do it a whole lot of explaining, but I'm gonna explain what I just said. Now, the neutral piece, what I just said, neutral is good for me. It's just a word right now, right? On the media platform. However, let's just say I'm universal. Let's just do that. All right. So now I want to go right into why you're so passionate about so-called black folks talking about, being indigenous and things of that nature.
Okay, so I don't know if it's necessarily that I'm extremely passionate about it. I would say I'm extremely irritated about it because,
Damn.
for one, it it's escapism. It's a form of colonial escapism. It's a form of magical thinking, and it takes us away from being solutionary in attacking the real issues that we have, the real issues that we face: white hegemony, Western imperialism, capitalism. Right? We can't organize under a false pretense. First, you have to know who you are to at least understand what happened to you, right? And if you can't agree and understand that you are an African, right? And you are African brought over here at the bottom of slave ships, right? Then you're not going to understand or have the proper context on where we are and why we are in this position and condition that we're currently in. So it's just a waste of time. It's leading our people down no end street. It's again, like I said, it's magical thinking. It's colonial escapism. It's the same thing as somebody who instead of who succumb into the system and drinks every day, somebody who just has to have that escape. And so we create these mythical origin stories where we, to make ourselves feel better. For some reason, a lot of these brothers and sisters are ashamed to be African, right? Because as we know what happened to us, and we know the condition that we're in here in America, and so they don't want to be on the quote unquote losing team. But instead of again organizing, playing your part in the fight and the global struggle for Pan-Africanism and Black self-determination, you make up mythical origin stories about being Hebrew, being Native American, being descendants of Anunnaki. It's all leading us away from what we really need to be on.
Mm, okay. Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question. What about, back in the days, I got Indian in my family?
um, Obviously, that's something that they like to say a lot. They like to say that their grandmother told them that. But the interesting thing is their grandmother never passed down any indigenous retentions to them. They don't speak any indigenous languages. They don't cook any indigenous foods. They don't celebrate any uh, indigenous quote unquote holidays. They don't have any of the culture of indigenous people, but their grandmother told them that they're indigenous, right? I think a lot of it comes from how our people were taught about Africa. Africa having no history, Africa being the land of the savage, Africa being the land of the brute, right? And so, in order to escape sometimes physical persecution, we began to again create mythical origin stories, one, to make ourselves feel better, and two, in hopes that the European would get his foot off of our neck. But at the end of the day, there are, some people who have, it's not a large percentage, I will say, but it is some people who have some Native American ancestry. But if they may have 5%, 6%, which is on the high end, according to all the genetic studies that you'll find, right? But even if you have 5% uh, Native American ancestry, for the most part, on average, African Americans have 73% African ancestry, right? And so that's not going to take you you may have an African grandparent, a Native American grandparent somewhere. You may have one, but you got like the rest of your grandparents is African. What about them? You know what I'm saying? And so again, a lot of it is just myths that we told ourselves because of the condition that we were put in. Uh, and those got passed down. But again, everybody's grandma didn't say that. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's grandma didn't tell them that they were Native American.
Right, indeed. So I've taken a DNA test and all that stuff,
Hmm.
and ancestry.com, and I've also done 23andMe.
Hmm.
I'm African, bro.
Absolutely.
Now,
West and Central African to be at
exactly.
that.
Right, exactly. So now, have you taken those uh, DNA tests?
Yes, I did. The one I took was it was Nat Geo had one about 5 years ago, and so I took that one. Unfortunately, Nat Geo's results are no longer available online because they shut down their DNA testing thing, I guess. But yeah, mine came out like West and Central African. I mean, that's what I expected, right? But I probably will take one with ancestry.com, just due to the fact that I do a lot of my family history on ancestry.com, and that'll also be a good way to connect with family that I haven't met, possibly family on the continent, and connect some of those dots within my family tree.
Okay, so what about this, right? So who was the original man? The original man is an Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe, right? That degree and how basically um we're the original people. So we've been everywhere on the planet. So it would make sense that we would be indigenous to this planet because we were here before anyone else. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Okay, it does not mean that. All right, so we have to get out of this thing of, and I know we say this a lot, right? That we are the original man, which we are, obviously, but this idea that we populated the entire planet, and in a sense, it's not incorrect, right?
Mhm.
Um, when we look at the out of Africa migrations beginning 65 to 75,000 years ago, we began to populate the planet. But nobody that says this asks themselves what happens to a people genetically, when they encounter new environments for thousands of years, right? Whenever
Mhm.
they have new diets for thousands of years, experience genetic bottlenecks for thousands of years, right?
Genetic
And
bottlenecks.
yeah, and so that means, like, let's say you have a group of people who migrate from one place to a place that's not inhabited by anybody.
Mhm.
Those people begin to mate with each other and pass on those genetics without any outside influence genetically from anyone. That's the
Mhm.
genetic bottleneck. They're just reproducing and recreating with each other, transferring those same genes, the expression of those same SNPs. And so, yeah, in one sense, we did populate the entire planet, right? But that does not mean that over time, these people are the same people that originally left Africa, right? You would have to explain, why we have white people, why we have what we call, Asian people, uh, indigenous America, people in indigenous to the Americas, people in uh, Australia, right? You would have to account for this, right? And so another thing to expose that fallacious way of thinking, um, our ancestors were brought here. The first Africans reached North America in 1526. They, from what we know, they escaped, ran into the woods. We don't know what happened to them. Later, obviously, we have the 20 and odd that came to Jamestown, Virginia in 1619, right? And so this is a recent event in the
Re-
grand scheme of human history.
Right.
We just got to America. We did not evolve into a new people, right? This whole idea of the original man populated the whole planet. So I'm indigenous to Europe. I'm indigenous to Asia. I'm indigenous. No, your ancestors were brought here recently from Western Central Africa, which is why whenever you take a DNA test, it tells you autosomal in your autosomal breakdown that you are Western Central African, right? You may have some European admixture, but we all know why. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? The plantation rate that we experienced, so that's to be expected as well. But any genetic study that you will find will show you that African Americans have uh, 73% at least uh, Western Central African genetics. And when we say Western Central African genetics, just meaning that we have genetic affinities and similarities to those in the places where we were kidnapped from, West and Central Africa.
Got you. Got you. Got you. Makes a lot of sense. So now, so you would say we're not related to the Aborigines of Australia.
I mean, we're not genetically, but in a Pan-African sense and a decolonial sense, obviously those are our brothers and sisters in the struggle. But genetically, we're not related to them.
Okay, okay. So even though in the seventh degree and the 1 of 14s talks about why does the devil call our people African, and at the end of it talks about, it says he wants us to think that we are all different. Basically, we're all one family,
Hmm.
black
All right.
family. Hmm.
No doubt, no doubt. First off, I'd like to say peace to my brother Supreme Seven in the chat. That's my family. Peace to the gods and earths in Sudan as
Peace,
well.
peace, peace.
All right, so one thing that we also have to, if we're going to take, if we're going to talk about the lessons in Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, um, he asked what the population was in the original nation of North America.
Hmm.
He broke it down that it was
Yeah, you
17
did.
million
Yeah, he did.
and
Yeah,
two
you're right
million,
about that.
right?
Good
And all
point.
over the planet
Point.
Earth, 4 billion 400
400
million.
million. Right.
17 million were the ones who came over here in the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay.
The
Right.
2 million were the ones who walked the Bering Strait from Siberia uh, 23,000 years ago. And so he said that they are both original people, but he obviously shows that they have different origins, right?
Mhm.
I think that's what we have to understand when we start using terminology like original people. It doesn't mean that we are all the same genetically. It means that we are all original to the land masses that we uh, inhabited. You know what I'm saying? And so, in our sense, we are Africans that were brought here. I mean, that's what the 1 to 36 is telling you that story, right? Like it's telling you
Exactly.
the story of the transatlantic slave trade.
Right.
And another thing that people, whenever they, I be stand with 120, I'd say, or with what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught. Um, a lot of times they don't, or they forget to mention that although he used the term Asiatic to describe us in Message to the Black Man, he said that we are Asiatic from the continent of Africa, right? That's what
Mm.
he said. And so, again, that term Asiatic and why it was used back in those days, that's a whole nother show that we could have. But um, yeah, again, like, so if we wanted to just stay with what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught, then he definitely taught that we are of African descent. This is what he literally said in Message to the Black Man. Also, if you're able to, read between the lines in those lessons, obviously the 17 million represent those who came in the transatlantic slave trade, and the 2 million that came from that walked the Bering Strait from Siberia. Now we have to, now the evidence, right? When we look at the evidence, and anybody who's watching, there are going to be people who strive to debunk what I say, but it's not debunkable because I don't teach things that I don't know. So when we look at who the kinship between Native American populations and Siberian populations, Clovis culture and pre-Clovis culture share genetic affinities with populations in Siberia day, to this day, right? And so when we say Clovis and pre-Clovis culture, that is the name of that they have given to an archaeological site that I think was found in Clovis, New Mexico, I believe. But
Okay.
it's just evidence to show that they came over here at least 23,000 years ago, and they have found what they call Clovis arrowheads, that are the exact same as arrowheads found in Siberia. Again, as I stated before, they share genetic affinities with current Siberian populations as well. We don't, right? And so what happens is a lot of pretendians will say that they're not the real Native Americans, right? That the Native American, and I don't like to use that term Native Americans. I prefer indigenous people because, first off, America obviously has colonial roots, and they were in America before, obviously, Christopher Columbus and the Holocaust of indigenous people and African people.
Mhm.
But with that said, they can show and prove their history here, right? And then we are extremely disrespectful in saying that they're not the real ones and we are the real ones because we live in this fantasy that we are the the direct descendants of people that populated the entire earth. I mean, if we are the direct descendants of West and Central Africans that were brought here on the transatlantic slave trade. I mean, we could even look at the Africanisms that we currently brought with us. Everything from folk tales and folk stories, and you can look at
Right.
you can look at you can uh, do your own research and find different anthropological studies and archaeological studies that we did as Black people, showing things like Aunt Nancy stories rooted in Anansi stories from the Akan, right, that we brought to the Carolinas. We
Mm.
can look at the institutions that we can look at the institutions that we created. 1794, Richard Allen in Philadelphia created the Mother Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. This is 1794.
Mm.
The term African is in the name of the institution. That is one of the oldest African American churches in America. Also, Prince Hall, 1775. His lodge was not originally called Prince Hall. His lodge was called the African Lodge, right? And that was created in Boston, Massachusetts. It was not named after an indigenous nation, right? We can look at the places that we named. Like we can look at Africatown, which is in Alabama, which was founded by formerly enslaved Africans and enslaved Africans from West Africa and the Togo Benin area, who were illegally smuggled to the U.S. After the slave trade was banned in 1860. Why would they create why would they create a town called Africatown if they were indigenous to America? Also, you can read books like Barracoon from Zora Neale Hurston, who went and talked to the last remaining survivor, Cujo. I believe the American name they gave him was Cujo, but he had an African name that escapes me at the moment. But they preserved the African culture, parts of their language, and that was even one of the things that a lot of people pushed back on whenever she wrote the book, is that she wrote the book and 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 she wrote it in the way he spoke it, right? Whenever she interviewed him and talked to him, and so you see many African words still used, in his dialect because he was an African man.
Mm.
You have Igbo Landing, which was a rebellion and mass suicide in Georgia, right, where Igbo captives from Africa, where in Georgia committed a mass suicide instead of succumbing to the ills of slavery. Why would they Why would they name that Igbo Landing? One thing that you and Mikey Fever do well, which are some of my favorite shows that you have, are people that talk about African traditional religions on your show. So we have things like Lukumi, Vadun, uh,
Right.
Palo, Hoodoo. Um, all of these things were brought here from Africa, right?
Right.
If we are not African, how did they get here? They did not just appear here from nowhere. They did not just appear here from nowhere.
Right.
We brought those things here, right? And
Right.
even if you read and even when it comes to hoodoo, right? Uh Professor Katrina Hazard Donald at Rutgers has a great book called Mojo Working, where she breaks down the history and culture of hoodoo. And, she talks about its relationship with religion in the Bakongo, right? This is not anything that we just, again, made up out of nowhere, out of thin air, even with the use of mojo bags, right? Those are West African gree
Gregory
bags.
bags. Yes. Yes. Yes.
There's
We
no difference.
the brother Muriel Smith spoke about that the other night.
And
Yeah.
he's writing exact. Also, you know the banjo, or a version of the banjo, right, which gave birth to what we know as gospel, blues, soul,
Mhm.
which are the foundations of African American music, a West African instrument, right? um well, if you read Africanisms in America, got that over there. I have a book called Black English over there, where it kind of goes through the history of what they call AAVE, and the speech patterns that we use are similar to West African speech patterns that are used today, right? Like,
Can you give me an example? Okay, you okay.
no, that's, to be honest with you, uh, that's a tough one. That's the hardest part in Africanisms by Herskowitz. That's the hardest part of that read, to be honest with you, because I'm not a linguistic expert, but I could find you one that could build on that, right?
Mhm.
Um, And so, what about food cultivation, right? Certain types of rice we brought here. Okra. Where does okra come from? And why is it always in our food?
Right,
Jambalaya,
right,
gumbo. Okra is
right.
West African. You know what I'm saying? Watermelon. Where did that come from? We
Mm,
brought that with us, right? Certain types of rice. You could read about that in the African origins of rice cultivation in the Americas, right? They didn't bring us over here and teach us how to cultivate rice. We knew how to cultivate rice before they brought us over. That's why they brought us over here. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't, again, and speaking of languages, I forgot this one thing. You can go to parts of Jamaica now in maroon communities, and they have videos that you can see on YouTube of them talking, right? In the 60s and 70s, still speaking Cromanti languages from West Africa, still speaking them. Where did they come from?
mm,
Right? They're not indigenous to Jamaica. They were brought to Jamaica to to cultivate sugar in the sugar plantations. The same way we were brought here to cultivate rice, to cultivate tobacco, to cultivate sugar, to cultivate all of the things that we cultivated and built this country. So, you know, you can read about that somewhere over there, but you could read about that in as far as food. In High on the book High on the Hog, it's the companion to the documentary that's on Netflix that talks about the African origins of African American cuisine.
mm.
Uh, One second, and also burial practices, right? Right, not too far from me, there's a plantation that I go to sometimes just to show my respect. Um, there were cowrie shells found at the gravesite of those enslaved Africans. There were cowrie shells. You in New York, you know obviously about the mass enslaved African gravesite that's out there.
Yeah.
Cowrie shells were found there as well.
Mm,
Those represented West African burial traditions.
mm,
That's not, you don't, indigenous Americans did not use cowrie shells to bury their dead. Um, we can look in New Orleans, right? Old iron gates, ironwork, blacksmithing, iron gates that had Adinkra symbols, right? In them. That's not indigenous American, and so those are a few of the Africanisms that we brought here. And also, one thing that I feel is missing from the conversation is a lot of these people who claim that we are indigenous to America, and and that we're not African. They're not very well studied, and the things that they do read are books that should probably stay on the shelf, right? Um, you're wasting your time. When we look at the history, our history in African America, right? If we look at our history and the history of our educational pursuits, um, we look at people like Carter G. Woodson,
right,
W.E.B. Du Bois,
right.
whose life work was the Encyclopedia Africana. We look at other scholars in the diaspora at that time, Edward Wilmot Blyden, Cromell,
Mm,
Martin Delaney. They
right.
all talked about our Africanity. Not only that, have you ever heard of the flying African myth?
No. Oh, wait. The flying Afro, like voodoo spirit, I think I heard
Well,
something about
well,
that.
not necessarily voodoo. It was the idea that our ancestors had that when they died, their spirit would fly back to Africa.
Oh wow, never heard that.
Everybody in your chat right now can Google what I'm saying, take notes, whatever, and see that this is a real thing. The flying African myth, or the mythology of the flying African, just think about that. Think about the psychology of that. Not only did we know what we were Africa was heaven to us. Africa was
Mm.
home to us, right? We didn't don't get me wrong, after emancipation, obviously some of us said, hey, we have just as much claim to this country as anyone else because we spilt our blood for this country for 250 years. And they are right and exact. I'm not disputing anyone who feels that way. It doesn't mean that you're not African, though, right? It
Right.
means that your ancestors spilt blood on this land. Your ancestors cultivated this land. Your ancestors are the one that built America up. But your ancestors had ancestors as well, and they knew who their ancestors were. Hence, things like the flying African myth. Um, there's
Mm.
another idea that a lot of people have, and I've seen this on other people's show. Um, who I guess are propagating this idea that we are indigenous to Americans. This idea, and it's very silly to me, and I'm not going to say any names because I don't. It's not a disrespect to them. It's just the scholarship is a little weird. Where this idea that we didn't start thinking we were African until roots came out. Right? These are some of the things that I've heard people say. Now, do native. First off, how silly do you think your people are? Right?
That sounds crazy, but I will say this:
Hmm.
the Roots movie, it gave, I would say, people from our generation a visual,
Hmm.
and we kind of ran with that our imagination and that story told without doing enough research.
Well, that was obviously, there's dispute and allegations of plagiarism of the story. Regardless, with that being true, it does not mean that our story is not one of um, being kidnapped from Western Central Africa and forced, and our labor exploited and forced here in the wilderness of North America. That doesn't mean that you can't use Alex Haley's plagiarism as proof that we are indigenous to Americas. I just showed you that the AME Church was created in the late 1700s. I just showed you that African Lodge was created in the late 1700s. There were also, revolutionary groups, African Blood Brothers, the Free African Society, all of these different things. Like we knew who we were. We knew
Mm.
who we were. You know what I'm saying? Now, uh, it's kind of, again, we have to use our thinking caps. We can't just be out here, with the magical thinking and rolling with ideas that aren't substantiated by anyone. You have to think about this, brother. There isn't any uh university press or black owned press, black professor or professor of any race at that point who is teaching a history that says that we were not kidnapped from Western Central Africa. No academic says this. Now, what people will do when to push back, they will say, "Well, the academy is full of white supremacists, and that's the white man's knowledge,
Right,
and all of that
right.
shit like that." But
Yeah.
that's just a cop out for you not to be educated, right? Because at the end of the day, any book that comes from a university press is going to tell you, it's going to be a bibliography, and there's going to be a notes section where you can look and read the sources for yourself. You ain't got to take their word for it. Read the sources that they use to create the book, right?
Mm.
If you read the sources in stuff like they came before Columbus, you might not be running with that narrative. Ivan Van Sertima used American mythology sources. Leo Weiner. Like these aren't he wasn't using history books. He was using mythology books, right?
Wait, hold on. That right there. Okay, say that one more time for the people in the back.
One of the main sources that uh, Ivan Van Sertima used before they came before Columbus was from white anthropologist Leo Weiner, um, uh, who created books, with let me look for the name of that book that he created because I don't want to lie to the people. The name of that, Africa and the Discovery of America, right? And it's a book, again, it's a book that is easily debunked. It's a book that was written before the obviously the human genome was mapped, right? He didn't have any like genetic testing available to corroborate any of his ideas, and so and let me stay on this point too, real quick. Even Ivan Van Sertima is not saying that you aren't African. He's saying that you got there before Christopher Columbus, right? And the idea is that Abu Bakr II came from the the kingdom of Mali with what I guess they say about 20,000 people. They say he left. There's no evidence of where he landed. Some people say that North America. Some people say Brazil. But let's let's think about this though. Let's say he did land in North America, right? Did he have women on those ships with him, right?
Right.
Uh, what would happen to a group of 20,000 Africans landing in North America? And let's say they stumbled on an indigenous nation that had millions of people. They would have got swallowed up genetically, right? They would have got swallowed up genetically. And so a lot of people use that to say, okay, they use that idea that Abu Bakr II came to North America before Christopher Columbus to say that we are indigenous to North America. But that doesn't make you indigenous to North America. That just means that you possibly came before the transatlantic slave trade on an exploration trip, right? But again, there's no proof of no evidence uh, that he landed anywhere. He could have
And
got lost at sea, could have died at sea, or he could have made it somewhere and got swallowed up by the local population. They could have made it somewhere and got killed. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right,
By You just don't know, right? And again, that wouldn't prove that we are uh, uh, indigenous to North America. Um, Again, I can't say whether he made it or not because there's no evidence uh, either way. But what does that prove? That does not prove. I'm just plugging my stuff up. It got unplugged real quick, but that does not prove that we are indigenous. To North. We're still African, bro. And so I don't. A lot of people. You got to understand too the idea of the type of evidence that needs to be presented for the type of claims that these people made. Right? Carl Sagan once said, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." Where's the extraordinary evidence that people have that we are indigenous to America and not African? There is none, right?
hmm
And so, uh, do people realize the type of global conspiracy that would be needed for us to be tricked out of who we are? Everybody would have to be involved and everybody would have to know except for us. So the
right,
entire world knows that we indigenous people, we indigenous to North America, but us. Everybody know, and they kept a secret from us for thousands of years. Like it doesn't even make sense. And another thing I kind of find where I see a lot of people get trapped in, um, they they will say that they don't bear witness to evolution. They will say that they don't bear witness uh, to the out of Africa theory, and they talk about the out of Africa theory as if it's just a theory, a normal theory that you could just come up with out of thin air.
hmm
Scientific theory is not the same as theory. Scientific theory is based on the accumulation of facts that are testable. Just a normal theory that we may have, we could come up with a half-baked theory about anything right now. Doesn't mean that it's testable. Doesn't mean that there's any evidence for it, right? Wanted to say that to say this. So they'll say that they don't bear witness to evolution. They don't bear witness to the out of Africa theory. They'll say we always been here,
Yeah.
right? We
Right.
always been here.
Right.
So either you're saying that a mystery God put you there in North America, or that you literally uh, been in North America forever. Now,
They check
what
the.
doesn't make sense about
Mhm.
that claim is you cannot have been in North America forever. First off, the planet was not always habitable, right? The planet was not always habitable. They take the idea that we have no
Pangea.
beginning nor ending. We have no beginning nor ending. They take that idea literally as if we have all Homo sapiens sapien has always existed in its current form. That's not true. That shit ain't true, man. Like I, people gonna be mad at me. It is what it is. I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? They can't debunk anything that I'm saying. Homo sapiens sapien didn't always exist, right? And
Right.
also, hold on, let me get something real quick because I got a book for everything, man. Like like this is one okay. This is the story of the Earth, right? The first 4.5 billion years from stardust to a living planet. It goes over the history of the planet and its existence, right?
Mhm.
And so they're going to tell you that we've always been here, right?
Mhm.
And so what they're saying is that the planet Earth has always existed as we know it. You find me an astrophysicist that will ever agree with anything like that. Find one. Find one. We can use the Hubble. They use the Hubble telescope to look back in time at least 10,000. I mean, what 10 billion years already, right? They can look back in time 10 billion years, right? And they can see the formation of galaxies. They can see the formation of planets. But they're going to tell you that the planet always existed in the form that it's been because they don't have no explanation for how they are indigenous to North America and how they've always lived in North America. They don't have no explanation for that because they don't want to say that a mystery God put them there, and they don't want
Mhm.
to bear witness to uh, 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 ancient Siberian populations walking the Bering Strait and coming over there. So how did you get there then? And then they'll say, again, we always been there.
Yeah.
So
Before Pan. When it
they
was
ain't no
Pangea.
damn humans in no Pangea, man. Like, that's weirdo shit that people need to stop. That's you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't no
Yeah.
damn humans in Pangea. Like, what is they talking about, bro? And so, uh, one of
But
the things.
before we were Homo sapiens, what were we? Homo. How does it go? Like
Well,
the breakdown, the lineage.
as far as like our evolution before we became Homo sapiens sapien, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, there's a I guess you would have to say that there were many hominid groups for one, uh Homo heidelbergensis, Homo erectus, all of these different, and so we were the ones that survived, right? Like a lot of
Mhm.
them died off. I'm not sure about like how they were mixed or how they procreated with each other or if they did or not, but the evidence is there. We can look at, you know, fossil records and show, early human evidence for Homo sapiens sapien in the Great Rift Valley in Africa. It's not anything that is again some great conspiracy, as the God born eternal just said. Just do a basic like science
Science
class,
class,
like you know
right.
what I'm saying. So again, um,
So I
I
have
think
a
one of the,
question for you, real quick.
yeah, absolutely.
So, Degnesh out of South Africa, right?
Hmm.
Or Ashwakwasi says that the natives there call her Degnesh, who is
Hmm.
Lucy,
Hmm.
right? Lucy, she was Homo sapien.
No, she was like one of the precursors to Homo sapien, but I don't. She was not Homo sapien
Homo
sapien, I
sapien, right?
believe. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But regardless to that, like I don't want to get stuck there because that's just a mute point, right? That whole point was to show that what they will say is since they can't explain away the out of Africa theory or the different migrations out of Africa and how. If we are indigenous to North America, how we got there, since they don't have an explanation on how we got there or where we came from, right? You got to think about this. We would have to come from somewhere, right?
Mhm.
The indigenous populations that we know in America today came from somewhere. Where if we're indigenous to America, where did we come from? They can't explain that, right? And so they'll say again that we was here in Pangea, or the Earth has
Right.
always been the way it is now. Again, that's just categorically false and scientifically incorrect. And so again, I think it just goes to show the level of cognitive dissonance that you have to have in order to believe this kind of stuff.
Mm, mm. Thorough breakdown. Thorough breakdown. I thought you were gonna come with some slides or something like that, but I mean, truth.
I started to, but man, I've been pressed for time lately, man, and so
Right.
But again, all of these things, this is on the internet now. All they have to do is look up the things that I've said and show and prove that I'm wrong.
Indeed, indeed. If before we cut out any last words, that was a thorough breakdown from knowledge the born, as we say in the nation. I mean, there's nothing to. What else could I say behind that? You know what I mean? Can't.
Oh man, all I say is thank you for inviting me on the show. Again, congrats to you for all your success. The show is definitely a powerful show and much needed, and so we can continue to have discourses like these. But again, man, at the end of the day, the we're in some trying times, right? We
Mhm.
are seeing our people being laid off by the thousands. We are seeing state sanctioned violence against our people. We are seeing our people at home and abroad suffering on many different levels. You're not going to be useful to your people until you at least understand who you are as an African, right? Until then, you're just talking and you're standing in the way. Like eventually things going to have to come to a head, right? We're not going to stay in this condition that we're in forever. We're going to organize and fight our way out of it, and we can only fight with people who are rooted in a real knowledge of self and a real political education, and rooted and not living in a fantasy land, man. People that are living in a fantasy land will sell you out. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't go to battle with none of them.
Indeed, indeed. On that note, thank you for coming out this evening. Really appreciate you, brother. Thorough build. Would be glad to have you up again to build, to keep building this African Pan-African perspective on the NYP talk
Oh,
show.
let me say that just to say this too, because
Yes, yes.
a lot of pretendians confuse Pan-Africanism with the idea that Pan-Africanism is why we think we're African. No, there are Democrats Republicans who are black who know they're African. There are people of all political ideologies who are black people in America that know they're African. Being Pan-African doesn't have anything to do with who we are genetically. I just wanted to say that because that's another thing that they like to throw out.
Indeed. On that note, thank you for coming out again. Peace to everybody in the chat. We have the Son of Man on again, man. I gotta ask him some questions, man. We got the brother Son of Man on again in a few minutes. And see you in about 7 minutes. Peace to everybody. Peace to the
Peace.
God. Go check out his channel, Wise the Dome TV. He's heating up. He's heating up. Peace to everybody. We are out of here. One. Hold on. Let's throw that. I forgot the commercial, y'all. Don't forget the commercial. Hold on.
Peace, family, and welcome to NYP Talk Show. This is more than a podcast. It's a conscious platform rooted in truth and culture. From Pan-African teachings, hip-hop culture, current events, health, wellness, occult, and much more. Our mission is to reclaim our narrative and uplift the African diaspora with real stories and real conversations. Support us through Super Chats, during live shows, donations on Cash App, GoFundMe, Patreon, or Buzzsprout, and by repping our official merch, available on our website and right here on YouTube's merch shelf. Every dollar, every Super Chat, every hoodie builds the movement. This is NYP Talk Show.